Hi everyone, welcome to El Frente Del Este. As you guys know, this is the Eastern Front, but in Spanish. By February 10th, 1943, the great and powerful Soviet counteroffensive collided against a very small of Spanish people that were defending their own position within the framework of the Battle of Krasny, also within the framework of the World War II. Okay, to understand this, first of all, what I've been doing, I don't know if you guys remember that the last videos I made in English, I show you a Spanish historian, which is a very good historian, of course, and I'm trying to show in my channel some Spanish historians because in English we have very good Spanish with very good historians, I'm sorry, but in Spanish we also have very good historians. Unlike the last one that I showed you that have some videos about the little raid, about other things. Also made a video taking all the information from that video that I showed you before about the Alaska campaign as well. This was a Spanish writer that I want to show you, and today I have another Spanish writer. He has fortunately very good books. He has a lot of books in Spanish, of course. He's specialized in the Eastern Front and in the Spanish Civil War, the role played by the Spanish within the framework of the World War II as well, which is the case I'm going to talk about today. And today I'm going to show you this one. This book is written by him. This is the other writer. His name is Carlos Caballero Jurado, as you guys realize, and this book is in English. If you guys want to get it, I love this book because typically we don't have a lot of books translated into English from Spanish, at least about military history, so which is very good. This is very good. I highly recommend it. And he also have a lot of books. I'm gonna talk about the other book later. And I didn't read this book yet. I just started, and I'm gonna show you guys some of the things I highlighted already over here. This is what I've been reading so far. I mean, I just started to read it, but this book is very good because it shows you a lot of pictures, very good pictures, but also is very thoroughly when it comes to address the details about the artillery pieces, the battle, the amount of casualties, the amount of people that were in the engagement, everything. It's a very good book. So, and I would like to have this writer, to invite him here to the channel if he find us over there, if he watch our video eventually. And what we're going to talk about today is about the role that this Blue Division, the so-called Blue Division within this war. And I have to clarify certain things before to address this topic, because I've been watching other videos, especially in English, and other no writers but documentaries, when they address this from a different point of view than this guy. And I believe not only this guy, but if you find other writers that are addressing the thing about the volunteers within the German army, for example, having misunderstood at a certain point. And I'm going to clarify this. First of all, we have to understand this, why the Spanish sent the Blue Division to the Eastern Front. We have to understand, first of all, the Spanish Civil War. I don't want to go deeper, but I'm just going to get a little bit into the context to understand. So the Spanish Civil War was an engagement that took place, of course, within the framework of the Spanish people, of course, between 1936 and 1939. This is important because the Spanish territory was used by the Germans, the Italians, and the Soviets to test their weapons, the weapon that we're going to use in the World War II, in the upcoming war. We know that the Soviet Union and the Germans and the Italians got into different sides within this war. And I'm going to explain it. The Germans helped to the so-called nationalist side, and the Soviets helped the so-called Republican side. And I have to explain something as well. probably here in South America, in Spanish America, and in North America, the United States, Canada, the Republicans are more like righty, but it's very different in Spanish. The Republicans are more lefty in terms of political wing, and this is important because it's very different to understand this. When I say the Republicans, means like the left side in the Spanish Civil War. Okay, so having said this, means that the Soviets got into the Republican side and the Germans and the Italians got in the nationalist side. They were pretty much testing their weapons over there because a lot of the weapons that were used in the Spanish Civil War were used in the World War II as well. But also, when this finished, we need to understand that the Spanish Civil War finished, I do believe, by April 1940. 1939. I would say April. I could be wrong, but just correct me if I'm wrong. And then the World War II broke out in in September, like a couple months later. So that's why the Spanish population were very polarized at this point, and of course they were just finished their Spanish Civil War. That's why many people were very wounded. Of course, they were very, positioned on any side. When the World War II broke out, the Spanish, I'm gonna just address the krasny battle a little quick to understand this a little bit, because in certain documentaries, especially, certain people have said that they sent the Blue Division because they were requested by Hitler, and when you watch or when you read this book or other kind of books, especially about certain Spanish writers, they claim that they were not sent over there because he requested. Because first of all, we have to understand that when the Germans unleashed the onslaught on the Soviet Union, which was in June 1941, the Germans, since they thought they were, of course, undefeatable, they never thought they were gonna need help from anybody. By anybody. That's why they didn't even consider to request troops to any other country from their allies. They didn't even consider troops from Spain, even though from Finland that was attacked by the Soviet Union later. They thought they were gonna be able to destroy the Soviet Union so easy, which never happened, by the way. But that's what they thought because they thought they were superior than everybody else. Completely wrong, of course. But by 1942, the Spanish sent certain troops. First of all, because we have to understand that these troops were volunteers, the same as many countries send volunteers to the German army. And I'm gonna give you an example. For example, the Ukraine that are very popular at this point because the war is taking place right now in the Eastern Europe. They sent volunteers to the German army. Not only the Spanish, the Ukrainians, the Finland sent troops, like many countries. And actually, I'm going to show another book. This is a very great book written by the same writer, Carlos Caballero. I mean, he has a lot of books, but this is when he talks about the volunteers in the Wehrmacht, because the Spanish were not the only volunteers. I'm going to show a couple of these, divisions. Croatia, for example, sent troops as well. I don't know if you guys remember France. There were volunteers from many countries. It wasn't only the Spanish people. That's why when people call either one side they were communists or the other side were Nazis just because they were within this army is completely wrong, because we have to understand how Europe was at that point, how polarized was the population across Europe. Many people were very scary about the communism and they were very scared about the Nazism as well. But we have to understand as well that at this point many people volunteered to the German army because the crimes against the Jewish population were not known at that point. They started to carry out certain laws in 1942, but they didn't. I mean, nobody knew about all the crimes that were found at the end of the World War II. So that's why many people volunteered to the German army, because everybody knew about the crimes carried out by the Soviet Union. That's so important to understand. It's important to understand the time to track the dates to understand why this happened. Okay, so when you address this topic about the Blue Division, is like when they went over there, they consider they have to fight the Soviet Union because they were trying to install a communist regime as well in Spain within the framework of the Spanish Civil War. So that's why many people volunteered to fight over there, not to defend the Nazis, but to fight the Soviet Union. And this happened with many countries, with Ukraine, it happens with Croatia, it happened with Finland, it happens even with France that was occupied. France sent volunteers, I mean troops as well, that joined the Nazi army, but we have to think that they were occupied. I mean, France was occupied at this point by the German troops, and even though they volunteered to the German army, many people, I mean, no, it was a great amount of people. There were certain people that volunteered because they consider even worse the communist threat, even worse than the Nazi threat. So that's why we have to understand this. It doesn't mean that everybody were not Nazi just because they were there, or everybody were communist just because they were in the communist army. Having said this, so the Spanish government sent these troops first of all as volunteers. They couldn't send them as a regular army troop sent by the country, because if they would have done this, would have been understood by the Soviet Union as a casus belli to declare war on Spain. So, but at the same time, they didn't even know if they were gonna win the war, the Germans or the Soviets. Okay, so what they did with this troop was send a representation, I would say, to fight. But many people, of course, went over there, as I say before, to fight the Soviet Union because they considered it was a threat, and because they were very wounded because of the crimes carried out in the Spanish Civil War. Okay, this is important to understand. Okay, but now we're gonna just jump over to February 1943. Actually, 10. It was February 10th, 1943, when the Soviet army carried out a onslaught over the Krasny front, which is a area located in the northwestern side of the Soviet Union, right next to the Volkhov River, and there is another area over there. It was the Ilmen Lake as well. Over there, they were positioned, the Spanish troops. They were around 6,000, between 5,800 and 6,000 troops over there that were halting the great, I would say the greatest, one of the greatest, a huge counteroffensive carried out by the Red Army. It was about 1,000. It was about 1,000 tanks and about 45,000 troops that launched against this very small front. And what the Spanish did, they were able to, halt the counteroffensive. They got a lot of casualties as well. Of course, they lost in the first wave around 2,000 people casualties. I mean, deaths. And then, but they were able to hold the Soviet attack. This was within the framework of the Leningrad siege, and we're going to put in context this as well, because between, I would say, September 1941, after the invasion of the Soviet Union carried out by the Germans, by September 1941, they were trying to capture Leningrad, which was one of the heartlands of the Bolshevism, first of all, and to isolate it, keep it out of the rest of the city and the army in order to kill them, from starvation, basically. Of course, the Spanish were sent over there. They didn't even know where they were going to be sent or located. They were sent over there to defend the area in order to halt the Soviets, because the Soviets were trying, of course, to break through the siege, and free the city. Of course, this was more or less the context of the situation, and I'm not gonna go through the battle. I just wanna show a little the numbers of the casualties. At the very end of the Battle of Krasny, it was just one day. At the end of the Battle of Krasny, as I said before, the Spanish were able to keep the position, waiting for the backup, of course, by the Germans. And at the end of the campaign of this battle, they pretty much lost about 2,000 people, but they inflicted to the Soviets in the total of the, the battle or the campaign over there, inflicted about 16,000 people to the Soviets, about 16,000 deaths. It was another amount of wounded people, but also the Spanish, they lost about 2,000 people. They got a lot of prisoners, about 372 prisoners that were sent to the camps, the concentration camps. And also there were many other people that get back to the front to fight, and other people get back to their country. But I didn't go that deep as I would like to do it. But I just want to show you a very brief details about this book. First of all, I just wanted to clarify certain things that I've been watching in other videos, especially in English, because sometimes it is not as we think, especially when you go through the history. So that's why I recommend this book, highly recommended. I just started to read it, but I've been reading other books about this writer, and I've been watching a lot of interviews and speeches that he's been given, and he is very specialized on this. So I hope you guys like this video. I hope you give me a like, give me your opinion about this, the volunteers in general of the not only Spain, but the rest of the countries. You have to remember that it was about 1 million of volunteers across Europe that volunteered in the German army. So if you guys like this video, help me to share it. But let me any comment down below here, any review, give me a like, help me to share this, because that's the way we grow in this channel. So thank you very much for watching, and see you later.